So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian, and I moved up to Alaska about 4 years ago. And ever since I moved up, I've been coming to the Great Lake Christian Church. When I think back at the time I've been up here in Alaska, some of the most memorable times come from road trips. I think back, and I've taken many road trips here in Alaska, and it goes back all the way to when I was young. With my family, we always do a yearly road trip. And not just with my immediate family, but we have my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, we have everyone. And it was a really big highlight in my life. But the one issue was that every time we would drive for any longer than 30 minutes, I would get car sick. And so in our family car, we'd have something called the bark bowl. And so you knew not to eat out of this bowl. This bowl was our bark bowl, designated for that. And so as we take our long 10 to 12 hour drives, we'd have to periodically do pit stops and do a bowl because of it. And so these are some of the first memories that I have with the road trip. And so I want you to take a second and think of some memories that you have from the road trips that you've been on. You know, maybe you've driven up from the Elkhorn, all the way up to Alaska. Maybe you've driven in the lower 48. But think of some memories, because with road trips, I think they can create some exciting times, right? They can create some memorable moments, maybe some sticky situations, or a lot of times they can create some arguments more often than not. And I think one of the things that road trips have in common is that a lot of times we doubt where we're going, at least one time. And this is very true for me if you've driven with me. I doubt quite often where I'm going and where I'm headed. People ask me, Brian, you sure you know where you're going? And I say, yeah, of course I know where I'm going. But deep down inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really hope I'm heading the right direction. And that just doesn't happen on road trips. I often doubt where I'm going in life, and how I'm going to even get there. And I think we can doubt that often. Where am I going? What road am I on? Where and how am I going to get there? It's easy to doubt. We all do it. And I think one thing that can really help us is a GPS. It has been a life changer for me. And I think the GPS is incredible. Gives you turn-by-turn direction, tells you when to turn. Mine is in an Australian accent. It's awesome. It has really saved my life many times. But on road trips, many times we're with our family, we're with our friends, we're with a big group, right? And so it's usually not just us and our GPS. So this is what it looks like. You're following your GPS, it's telling you where to turn. Then you have Brian thrown up in the back. And then you have, Mr. Google Maps sitting next to you telling you missed the turn 5 miles back. And then you have road signs, and then you have lights, you have all these things telling you which direction to go. And here's what that looks like.
Highlighted light. Then all clients will begin.
Why do you use that thing? Lets them know where you are at all times. The government, spy satellites, detectives, ex-girlfriends.
Make the next right turn.
How do they know? How does this know where to turn? That's very impressive.
Proceed straight.
Well, we're 0 for 6. Last chances in Elmhurst Country Club. Other side of the lake on the southeast side.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. I thought this would work. Threw everything ahead of that guy, nothing.
That's how it goes sometimes, You lose everything, and everything falls apart, and eventually you die and no one remembers you. Wait, no. It means bear right. Not there.
It said right, so take a right.
No, look. It means go up to the right, bear right, over the bridge, and hook up with 307.
Make a right
Maybe it's a
turn.
shortcut to it. It said go to the right.
It can't mean that. There's a machine. It knows where it's going. The machine knows!
Remain calm. I have trained for this. Okay.
In our life, it can seem like we're being pulled in 1,000 directions. directions, and we have all these signs, all these people telling us which way to go, where to go, and it can get really confusing. You know, and many times in my life, I've driven into a lane. Not literally, but just in my life, because there's so many people giving you so many different directions. And one thing we need in our life is we need to have our GPS set in the right direction. Right? Where does your GPS lead you? What road is your GPS leading you on? And we're going to go through the book of John, John chapter 12 today. And we're going to start out by reading John chapter 12, verse 1. So if you want to go ahead and turn your Bibles there.
Come on,
In
Brian.
these 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. Then Mary took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with fragrance of the perfume. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected, "Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor, who's worth a year's wages?" He didn't say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. "Leave her alone," Jesus replied. "It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me." Meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Jesus was there and came not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well. For an account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and believing him. You know, when I read this passage, I couldn't help but think, what in the world is going on here? I imagine coming home from work one day to my roommates, and Jonathan washing David's feet with his hair. What is even going on here? Well, you see, in order to understand what Mary is really doing, what her goal is, we have to look back at John chapter 12. Last week we covered John chapter 12, and we learned that Mary's brother, Lazarus, had just died. Right? And she called out for Jesus to come and help his brother, but Jesus didn't make it. And so in chapter 11, verse 32, it reads, "When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, 'Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.'" So in that moment, Mary was indeed distraught. She couldn't understand why her brother had died. And later on in that chapter, we read that Jesus ended up raising Lazarus from the dead. And if we move on to chapter 12, it makes a little more sense now that we see why Mary is washing Jesus' feet with this expensive perfume and using her hair. It shows her remarkable gratitude towards what Jesus has done. She was extremely thankful that Jesus raised her brother from the dead. And what sticks out to me here is that we see Lazarus sitting at the table, right? And Lazarus, her brother, had just been risen from the dead, and she had been reading about it. But Mary's focus was still on Jesus. Right? Often, when a doctor heals someone from cancer, we're so focused on the patient and celebrating with the patient that we forget about the doctor. Yet Mary here was focused on the healed, on Jesus. See, Mary's GPS led her to the feet of Jesus. Her focus was in the right direction. Mary didn't hold anything back. It says that she poured out all of her perfume. But she didn't just pour out, half the perfume, or maybe 3/4. No, it says she poured out all the perfume. It says she went all in. I believe Mary went all in because she was just so grateful for Jesus. And isn't that why we serve Jesus? Because we're so grateful for what he's done in our life. We're so grateful for the impact that he's made in our life and in those who surround us. We serve Jesus because we're grateful for what he's given us. So where is your GPS set to? Does it lead you to the feet of Jesus? Is your GPS set in the right direction? Are you serving God with all of your heart? Or are you being like Judas? I call him judgmental Judas, right? You heard of doubting Thomas, here's judgmental Judas. See, Judas was convicted. You know that feeling when you see, maybe someone's on fire for God, or maybe it's your coworker, they just go all out. They go above and beyond, and you're just trying to coast by, right? Most of my high school career. But when you see them going above and beyond, you get frustrated because they make you look foolish, right? They make you look bad. And you're like, what the heck? Making me look bad. And that's what happened with Judas here, is he was frustrated with Mary. And he got angry. He's like, well, what the heck? Why are you wasting that perfume? You could have used it to help the poor. And I think that's a legitimate question. And I had the same question, right? Why didn't Mary use this perfume to help the poor? Well, because she was serving Jesus. She was giving everything she had for Jesus. And I can't help but think that was everything she had. All of her savings. I think of they said it was a year's worth of salary. That's how much the perfume was. And I think of a year's worth of salary. That's incredible. Maybe not mine, but I know others out there. It's incredible. It really is. A year's worth of salary. And she gave it all. No hesitation. She went all in. She gave everything to Jesus. When we go all in for Jesus, people notice. People will turn their heads, just like Judas. And in the bottom half of the scripture, we see the Jews here. Now, they not only wanted to kill Jesus, but also Lazarus, because of the good that Jesus was doing was making an impact. And when we go all in, when we pour everything out for Jesus, people will notice. They'll turn their heads, they'll question, whoa, what's going on? Why are they acting that way? So my question for you is, do people notice your relationship with God? And I don't ask that question to say that, I want people to see me, how great I am. No, that's not the heart that Mary had. See, Mary didn't think about what people cared about her. She cared about what Jesus thought. She cared about giving everything for Jesus. And so again, the question is your GPS, is your focus in the right spot? It's important that we answer this question. It's important that we find out where our GPS is set to. And it's important that our GPS is set to the feet of Jesus, like Mary's was as well. So, what happens when we don't follow our GPS? We go off course. And reading on here, in John chapter 12, verse 12, we read, "The next day, the great crowd that had come for the festival heard that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. They took palm branches and went out to meet him, shouting, 'Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel.' Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, 'Do not be afraid, daughter Zion, see your king is coming, seated on the donkey's colt.'" At first, his disciples did not understand all this. Only after Jesus was glorified did they realize that these things had been written about, and that these things had been done to him. Now the crowd that was with him when he called Lazarus from the tomb, raised him from the dead, continued to spread the word. Many people, because they had heard that he performed this sign, went out to meet him. So the Pharisees said to one another, "See, this is getting us nowhere. Look how the whole world has gone after him." At first glance, it can seem, like these Jews here, they were praising Jesus for what was right. They were throwing a celebration for him. They were worshiping God. And nothing seems wrong here. But when we take a closer look, we realize that the Jews here, they had different expectations, right? They believed that Jesus was going to be their national savior, that he was going to be their political savior, and that he was going to rise Israel up again. Their focus, again, was off. Their course was off. So what happened was they set Jesus into their plans rather than following Jesus' plans. They put false expectations on Jesus. They wanted to rule the country again, and Jesus was going to be the king who would lead them to victory. So my question is, what false expectations do you put on Jesus? People will ask me, "Hey Brian, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I say, "Bro, I got Jesus. I will be retired in 5 years. I'm going to have, an awesome marriage. No arguments. It's going to be incredible. Awesome kids. Life is going to be awesome." See, we put false expectations on Jesus all the time, and it's so easy to do. And so often, I fall into these false expectations. We have these expectations, and we try to fit Jesus, again, into our life, rather than fitting our life into Jesus' plans. We have them all the time. But the problem is, they distract us. Just like the Jews here, they were distracted. They had lost their course. It had looked like they were celebrating Jesus for the right causes, but they weren't. Right? They thought Jesus was going to be their political, their national savior, rather than their eternal savior, rather than their spiritual savior. It can be really easy to think that we're on the right path, that our GPS is set in the right direction. Now, 2 years ago, Andrew actually came home to visit my parents with me. And when we went home, it was the first time we went home to visit my parents. We decided to take a trip to New York City where some of her family members were. And so I never driven there, so we stuck the coordinates in the GPS and we set off. About half hour into it, I'm thinking like, this doesn't really look right. We're heading deeper into the woods. It's like something's off. But I had never driven to New York City before, so I figured, we're probably fine, we're probably heading in the right direction. And the estimated arrival time said 2. Said it would take 2 hours. So figured it out. Yeah, that sounds about right. So as we continue to drive on, some more time passes, and eventually I'm like, something's totally wrong. We're getting farther into the woods. This does not look like New York City. And so I finally held it out, and I said, we're not on the right course here. So we zoom out the GPS, and come to find the GPS is taking us all the way up through Canada and all the way back down to New York. I have no idea how that happened. Who wants to go to Canada? I mean, seriously. It just blows my mind. But the thing was, I never looked close enough. The estimated arrival time said 2 a.m., not 2 p.m. I just never looked close enough to see the a.m. But it's the same in our walk with Jesus. See, sometimes it can seem like we're heading in the right path. It seems like everything is lined up. But maybe something's off and we just don't see it. And before you know it, we have all these false expectations. Right? And we're putting Jesus into our life rather than putting our life into Jesus. Rather than following our plans, we're trying to make him follow our plans. Rather than him following us following him. Does that make sense? And so, again, this is why it's so important that we have our GPS set in the right place. Right? Because if we don't, we could end up in Canada. Right? You could end up off course. We have to make sure our GPS is on the right path. Again, where is your GPS leading you? What road are you on? A lot of expectations we put on Jesus. At least I know that I put on Jesus. I'm going to live a physically healthy life. I'm going to have a loved one to share with. I'm going to have a great home, a great job. All these things Jesus doesn't promise. He never promises them, but what he does promise, he promises that he will be our spiritual Savior. Right? That if we choose to follow him, then we will have eternal life. And that's the greatest destination. That is the greatest GPS to follow. The question is, how do we know we're on the right path? How do we know that we're not heading to Canada? Well, thankfully, Jesus offers a solution. Let's go ahead and read on John chapter 12, verse 1. It reads, Now there were some Greeks among those who went up to worship at Bethesda. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, with a request. Sir, they said, we would like to see Jesus. Philip went to Andrew. Andrew and Philip returned toward Jesus. Jesus replied, The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it. But anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it from life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant will also be. My Father will honor the one who serves me. So what is this incredible solution that Jesus gives us? Go die like a kernel of wheat. That doesn't make sense to me. And so I wanted to do some research. I wanted to understand, okay, what does it even mean to die like a kernel of wheat? So I called up the Alaska Flour Company up in Delta Junction. And I asked them, what does it mean to die like a kernel of wheat? This makes no sense. The lead miller there told me, and he knew what he was talking about, trust me, he could go on forever. He told me that when the head of wheat dies, it actually falls to the ground, okay? And what happens then, it can then be buried, and then it can mature, and then it can produce. And the incredible part of this process is actually the production that comes after death. Right? So the Alaska Flour Company, they put in about 100 pounds of seed per acre. And they yield 2,000 pounds per seed per acre. So they put in 20 pounds, or they put in 200 pounds, and they get 2,000 pounds. It's incredible. See, Jesus died one death to save many lives. Jesus died so that the millions after him would have the opportunity to follow him, would have the opportunity to be saved. So one death equals many lives saved. Jesus calls us to have the same mindset. He calls us to imitate him. We turn in Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 to 8. It reads, in your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on the cross. So how do we know that our focus is on Jesus? So how do we know our GPS is set on Jesus? Well, we have to become like Jesus. We have to serve Jesus, to be obedient to him. A little acronym for you to remember, because I need things to help me remember. GPS, go practice serving. Everyone say it with me. Go practice serving. Remember that. If there's one thing you remember to go practice serving. Because that's what Jesus did. He came to this world to serve. And so in our lives, that's what we do. See, we imitate Christ. If we go back to John chapter 12 in verse 26, it reads, whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant will also be. So where did Jesus go? Jesus went to the cross. He died for us. He died so that the many may be saved, so that you and I have the opportunity to be saved. And the Greek definition of servant means to execute the commands of another. See, where do we find the commands of Jesus? Well, we find it in the Bible, right? All you have to do is open the Bible up, and there is Jesus' commands. In order for us to be fruitful in our life, in order for us to produce the fruit that God calls us to produce, we need to die in our life so that we're able to even follow his commands. And in my life, I can think, oh my gosh, Jesus is calling me to die again. I got to be less selfish again, this is the worst, right? And I can focus so much so on the death part rather than the life that death brings. And I think Jesus really wants us to focus on the life. He wants us to focus on the 2,000 pounds of wheat that we can produce, right? He wants us to focus on the lives that we can change. He doesn't want us to be focused on the death part rather than the life part. So, what in your life do you need to die to? What in your life is keeping you from obeying God's word? Is it old habits? Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's work. Whatever it may be, it's important that we identify it so that we're able to live for Christ, so that we're able to then produce fruit. Jesus was the greatest of servants. And we see here, he led by example. He served God with all of his heart. We're going to skip verses 37 to 43. We're going to come back to it at the end. Verse 27. In verse 37 it reads, even after Jesus had performed so many signs in their presence, they still would not believe him. This was to fulfill the word of Isaiah the prophet. Lord, who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For this reason they could not believe, because as Isaiah says elsewhere, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, so that they can neither see with their eyes nor understand with their hearts, nor turn, and I will heal them. Isaiah said this because he saw Jesus' glory and spoke about it. Yet at the same time, many, even among the leaders, believed him. But because of the Pharisees, they would not openly acknowledge their faith, for fear they would be put out of the synagogue. For they loved human praise more than the praise of God. Human praise is very dangerous. It's deadly. And we see here that the leaders, they loved human praise more than the praise from God. The leaders knew at this time, if they openly announced that Jesus was the Lord, they were going to follow Jesus, that they would be kicked out of the synagogue. And to be kicked out of the synagogue at this time meant excommunication from the Jewish community. Their entire life would be completely flipped upside down. Right? They would no longer have the same relationships they once had. They would no longer have the same life that they once had. They would be on their own. And so the Jews here were fearful. And it makes sense to be fearful. That scares me, to lose everything to follow Jesus. It's a big struggle for me. Right? Throughout my whole life, I've always wanted to please people. Always wanted to make everyone happy. There was one time where I planned to hike with a group of people, I planned to Skype my parents, and I planned a date with Andrew all at the same time because I didn't want to just please anyone. It's super difficult for me to just please anyone, right? I just have it in my mind. I have to please everyone. I have to, make everyone happy. I have to juggle all these balls. But that is not what Jesus calls us to do. So Jesus calls us to make a choice. And in our life, we do have to make a choice. We have to choose whether we want to please people or whether we want to please God. Whether we're all in for people or we're all in for God. And it's a difficult choice. It's not an easy choice. So again, the question is, who do you serve? Do you serve people or do you serve God? Because, again, God calls us to go practice service. GPS, right? Go practice service. In your life, you will serve one or the other. For me, I'm either going to serve God or I'm going to serve people. There's no riding on the fence. Right? The Pharisees, the Jews here, they had to make a choice. And they chose to serve the people rather than God. Again, who do you serve? As we read on, again, we see Jesus leading by example. Jesus serves God. And he's demonstrated this in verse 44 to 50. It reads, Jesus cried out. But then Jesus cried out, whoever believes in me does not believe in me only, but in the one who sent me. The one who looks at me is seeing the one who sent me. I have come into the world as a light so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. If anyone hears my words but does not keep them, I do not judge them. For I did not come to the world to judge, but to save the world. There is a judge for the one who rejects me and does not accept the words. The very words I have spoken will condemn him. That's it. For I did not speak on my own, but the Father who sent me commanded me to say all that I have spoken. I know that his command leads to eternal life. So whatever I say is just what the Father has said. And so here we see Jesus. This is the last time that Jesus is going to speak to the public in the Gospel of John before his death. About a week later, Jesus is going to go to the cross. And here we see Jesus. He's giving his goal. He's giving his mission here. And his mission was to be the light. Right? His mission was to be our GPS, to be our guidance. That was his mission. And how did he give us the light? Well, he spoke God's word. It says that. It says that he has come not on his own terms, but to speak the words of his Father. And my question for you is, for those of you who have a Bible, or maybe it's a phone, do we know what we have in our hand? Right? This is not a GPS, right, that's going to guide us to Canada. It won't guide you to the Bahamas, it won't guide you to Hawaii or anywhere else. No, it will guide you to have the most fulfilling life. It really will, It will guide you to be able to have the greatest purpose that you've ever had. It will guide you to have fulfilling relationships. But we have to make a decision. We have to choose whether we're going to take it out of the GPS, out of the glove box. We have to choose whether we're going to turn the GPS on. We have to choose whether we're going to follow it. Or we have to choose whether we are going to follow God's word. We do have a choice. And if you are already following God's word, that's awesome. Keep going. Don't steer off the road, right? Just keep going at it. Don't drive into a lake, right? Keep in God's word. Keep going. And if you're new here, maybe you just don't know, maybe you don't know what road you're following, what GPS your course is set on, I encourage you to ask questions. I encourage you to ask the person sitting next to you, you know, how do I get into the Bible? I guarantee you that someone will ask you to study the Bible here. Maybe 5 people, I don't know, but my encouragement, my challenge for you is accept it. You know, get into the Bible, see what it offers, see what it has to say, because the reality is we are all on a road going somewhere. And I think it's awfully important that we figure out who we are following on this road. And so again, my encouragement for all of you is to set your GPS in the right direction, is to go practice service. We're going to finish out John chapter 12 here in a moment, and we're going to do this by doing communion. And this is a time in the service where we focus on Jesus, where we focus on the sacrifice that He's made for us. So as you turn back with me, John chapter 12, verses 27 to 36, it reads, "Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it was for this very reason that I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name." Then a voice from heaven, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." The crowd that was there heard it and said it had thundered. Others said an angel had spoken to me. Jesus said, "This voice was for your benefit, not mine. Now is the time for judgment on this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out, and when I am lifted up from the earth and draw all people to myself." He said this to show the kind of death he was going to die. The crowd spoke up, "We have heard from the law that the Messiah will remain forever. So how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man?" Then Jesus told them, "You're going to have the light just a little while more. Walk while you have the light, before darkness overtakes you. Whoever walks in darkness does not know where they're going. Believe in the light while you have the light, so that you may become children of light." When he finished speaking, Jesus left, gave himself away. See, the Jews here, they still didn't get it. They still didn't understand. They still thought that Jesus was their national savior, right? Was their worldly savior. They didn't get why Jesus was going to die. They didn't see him as their eternal savior. They didn't see him as the one that brought the light of this world. See, Jesus provides us with light. He provides us with opportunity to have a relationship with him, and he did this by sacrificing his life for us. He did this by going to the cross for us. And it is a pretty significant, thing of humility that Jesus did. He was the kernel of wheat that died so that you and I could have a relationship with him, so that you and I could be saved. And in a moment, we're going to have the ushers pass out some pieces of bread and some cups of juice. And the bread represents the body of Jesus, and the cup of juice represents the blood of Jesus. And we do this in remembrance of Jesus. We do this in remembrance of his sacrifice. And so what I encourage you in that moment of silence, to thank Jesus for what he's done in your relationship with him, for what he's done in your life, for what his sacrifice has given you. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, I thank you so much, God, that you have given us the most amazing Savior. Father, I thank you so much that Jesus, that he came down to this earth so that he can give us the light so that we can have a relationship with him. I thank you so much that Jesus died for us so that we can have a relationship with him, so that we can then have the greatest purpose. God, I thank you so much for what you just done. I pray these things in your son's name.